And now we're finally actually getting to the topic that I promised very early in the morning. I've been kind of promoting the whole event this year, the seamless experience. And one of the ways I initially thought that this would play out is something that we'll probably now hear from Elisa's perspective. As you know, Elisa is one of the probably the biggest telecom company in Finland, and they currently provide you different kind of services across multiple channels. And managing those multiple channels might be technically difficult, but when you go to a design factor, then it becomes even more difficult. So what we're glad to hear today is that Jonna Rantanen, service designer, and Esko Kurvinen, service design lead, will be discussing how Elisa has been tackling this problem over the last years. Please welcome Jonna and Esko.
So, hello everyone, glad to be here. My name is Esko and this is Jonna, as you may have already guessed. We brought landline telephone to Finland 136 years ago. That was like I think less than 2 years after it was introduced in the US, and well, we have been in the business since then. And boy, can you imagine that we built like corporate silos and legacy technologies and all sorts of organizational constraints since then. Of course, like we have data. It's all around. There are many businesses. I must tell it, perhaps all businesses are data-driven in some sense. Then we have these teams that are called sort of, are labeled as experimentation teams or growth hacking teams. I think currently we have like 4 of them, and we come from 2 of those teams. And I feel that we have a special role in the renewal of the company. So this is my playground. This is Elisa's corporate customers website. So this is the place where our corporate customers, small and medium-sized businesses mostly, come when they want to purchase a subscription or a phone or a service from us, or when they when they want to pay their bill, or when they have problems, when they have issues with the service or whatever. So my team is doing mostly A/B testing, but like incremental development of this service, these touch points, thinking of ways, trying to identify problems and thinking of ways to fix those problems. So as said, this is like fundamentally like incremental organic development of something that we already have. We don't reinvent anything new, but build on the existing thing. So about ways of working. In the background, we have this like huge roadmap project that is actually responsible of these interfaces. As well, all proper roadmap, real proper roadmap projects, their backlog is full of things for the next 6 or 8 months. Well, meanwhile, the challenge is that the customers, of course, can't wait 6 or 7 months for the next great thing to be implemented, so we need to continuously improve. So my team here has this role of picking up ideas from the roadmap. They may be like either things that they've already implemented or something that is still to be designed and built. We take these ideas and figure out fast ways to test these ideas with this like build, measure, learn loop, and then decide should we go and propose changes to the roadmap, or then kill the idea. And of course there are lots of ideas coming from outside the roadmap, so we have the business stakeholders in the company and customer feedback and things like that who throw us these ideas.
Okay, and this is our team's playground. So here you see 6 examples of different interaction or touch points that the customers might have with us. But the thing is that even though we have amazing people around the company who are interacting with the customers, and we have really efficient channels, and Esko already mentioned silos, we have millions of customers interacting with us. And if we think that the reality is like this, we are wrong. The world is complex. We can't pre-design the customer journeys because the challenge is the customers don't behave like this. They don't come to one interaction point and then deal with the thing and are happy. The reality is like this. So there is an ecosystem which we have to understand how the customers interact with us. And that's why what our team does, we research the natural user journeys, the pain points and the needs that the customers have with us. But we don't do this alone. So we have a team of 3 designers who research the user needs, but we do it together with others. So we have extended team around the organization, and then we have over 100 stakeholders around the organization. And together we create hypotheses, which we are then testing in these natural interaction touch points. And we are evaluating, is our hypothesis correct? And we are learning more about the customer. So how we work? Esko's team as well is working with the build, measure, learn model. What we do a lot is we get the insight from workshops, from different kind of data, both quantitative and qualitative. And then we have workshops with different people and sometimes also with customers. We create the hypothesis, we create the understanding, then we test it out. But this is a learning loop. It doesn't end there. When we learn something, we have to then bring the output to the stakeholders. We together have to understand what we do next. We can't just do one experiment and forget it. We have to do cumulative learning. It's a cycle, it's a learning loop. So, do you want this?
Okay, since this is a data-driven conference, this you may all know this, but let's recap anyway. So what's the theory behind testing? There are roughly 2 approaches. First is this known as A/B testing. So you put two competitors in the ring at the same time, and then it's you have some KPIs, and then it's the last man standing. But in many cases, we don't have like 2 designs to compete at the same time, but rather we have the earlier version and then the next idea, and we try that out. And there it becomes more complicated to actually measure, like, is this better than the previous one, or was it perhaps some changes in the market environment or behavior of the users that actually resulted in the B being better than the A, the previous one. But what's however common to both of these approaches that you have some set of rules that are defined beforehand. That I think all like agile, lean, whatever methodologies agree on this point, that you need to decide somehow the length of the competition and how the points will be calculated, and how the winner will be decided, and who sits in the jury and who's in the audience, and also the jury and competitors should be somehow announced beforehand. The audience doesn't get to participate, but as said, this is theory, and in many cases it actually happens that someone in the audience takes off their clothes and runs into the football field, or someone in the audience wants to participate, the jury, or become the referee in the middle of the game. In our case, as said, we do things in teams that are labeled experimentation teams, and we also have, I think, one of the teams is called growth hacking, this and that team. So take this team formations as sort of like a sandbox, a safety net for work. So you need support from top management. You need permission to fail and break things. You need to be autonomy. Okay, that's typos. You can choose which challenges to focus on. The team needs to have all the required resources to hack the interface, as for example my team does, within certain limits, of course. But okay, however, so you have this team that plays inside a nice sandbox, but it may happen that your team throws out accidentally sand out from the box, or are being too noisy, or the play doesn't quite stay within the box, and then some of the adults around get angry and start complaining. An example. So at some point, our subscription business in corporate customers decided that, okay, we need to simplify the subscription plans, and they introduced this new set of subscriptions, and so so the users would have to be like somehow enforced to change into these new contracts. So instead of just enforcing that change, we decided that, okay, let's build an email campaign that will lead to a landing page, and then we'll pre-select the closest match version for the users, and then they can also select otherwise if they choose to do so. We managed to build 4 different iterations in 28 days, which I think is rather good, considering that this was thousands of users, tens of thousands of users probably, through these iterations. And the results, okay. Well, we managed to double somehow the conversion rate compared to the previous update or upgrade-related campaign. We got this customer effort score, which is basically a survey where you asked after the transaction that how easy was it, and the score was in all-time high, 82 out of 100. We also got some open feedback from customers that it was like the easiest ever, and it was only one click, and I'm so happy with the price, and so forth and so forth. So it went well. But okay, then we started getting complaints from elsewhere in the organization. So our sales personnel contacted that hey, we were not informed about this campaign. Well, actually, you just didn't read the email. And then they said, oh, well, we have received lots of complaints from customers. Okay, please send them to us. Then we went through the, 10 of them or so, and none of them related to actually implementation of this 8B test. But I guess the underlying reason for the complaints was that we stole some of their business. So these people are paid partly by commission, so they get a certain percentage of all the sales. So that's one reason, but it's not only about their selfishness, but it's also that we somehow managed to spoil an opportunity for them to contact the user with this, or the customer with this purpose, and then also sell or inquire about other things. So in a way, they had also a point there.
Okay, example 2. So like I explained, what we do first, we collect understanding what is the problem of the user or our customer. So we knew that customers had certain kind of problems in a specific situation in stores. And we wanted to bring them and test out a solution that would create this kind of seamless channel changes in this omnichannel environment. So what we did, we created this scenario where we printed a scenario, and we actually made a really simple experiment called Mechanical Jerk. So we printed out these kind of posters. We brought these to several stores, and then we of course had metrics, and we were measuring what people do, how they behave when they see this kind of sign when they come to the store based on our hypothesis. And what was interesting that, of course, when we had metrics, then afterwards, and during the experiment and afterwards, we were going through like, okay, so what triggered the action? What did the people do? Why did they do it? And how did they feel? This is an example of one kind of metric and one kind of data that we collected during the experiment. And we were able to see like there are certain kind of peaks and certain kind of interactions based on certain things that happen in the store. However, sometimes you also learn. You didn't expect that when you experiment something, the data will bring you something else. So what we also do a lot, we collaborate with analytics, and we might backtrack several months, like, okay, so what has happened? How did the customers behave? And so what is actually their pain point? And here's one example of, there are 1, 2, and 3. They are examples of different channels. So if, for example, we look only at channel number 1, we are like, oh wow, we are perfect. It was one-time visit, and everything is perfect, and the customer was happy, the NPS is high, and all of that. If you look 2, it's a bit different story. If you look the holistic picture from data, we start to understand actually this customer had some serious issues. So how can we as a company bring the understanding and start to behave as an ecosystem if we don't look the customers as human beings who interact with us in many ways and have different kind of issues? And again, the same thing that I was mentioning before is that we can't pre-design this. This is the complex world that you need to have the experimentation so that you are changing your ways of working based on data. So it's data informed, but of course, this doesn't yet tell what was the reason for the customer, what were their emotions, how they behaved. So this is just one more step to understand more what should we do differently. In the end, we got happier customers. They were saying things like, oh, damn, this works so well. I'm so happy, please don't remove this kind of service. But then, isn't always that easy. Customer-centric world is different. Like the legacy, 130 years, or anything that we have done before, like most of you must know this, you need different kind of organizational thinking, you need different kind of ways of working. How, when you put customers to wait, you give the effort to them. When you take that job to yourself, you have to change. What do you do then? It's a different kind of design problem. But the summary, so the first reactions might be negative when you experiment in your company. People might, they might fear of losing salaries, they might fear of, they have like silos have competing KPIs, then there might be fear of getting more costs, that even though you might improve the customer experience, how do you make decisions if you actually create more demand in the service? But then later, in Esko's case, there was more collaboration. People were bringing actually later more ideas. Hey, could we do this together? And in our case, the same thing. They understood that actually in the long run, if we do this correctly, we are going to have happier customers, and we are actually going to have a more collaboration also.
Okay, but there's more. This is a funnel diagram that I borrowed from one of our consultants from another project, but I guess it's a typical funnel representation. This is actually the world in which I mostly live in. I try to improve the conversion to sales, or conversion to upgrades, or conversion to paying your bill, and so forth. Of course, we love the people who buy stuff from us and who download the brochure and revisit and so forth. We love these people. Now the problem is that actually we tend to put a lot of focus on the latter parts of the funnel, but we don't really understand these people in the very first step. So we may end up doing things for the 1% of customers while treating the rest 99% of customers as some sort of like leftovers or trash or junk or whatever, not important people. Why did they come here in the first place? However, There are several studies, our own and others, that show that actually people who come and visit the store or the website and browse through the catalog, if they're happy about that, they may not buy anything right now, but in the long run, they will purchase more from you. So shouldn't we be concerned how to serve the unimportant people better in their very first interaction with us? So this is something we started quite recently, actually. The problem is that if we look at the data, most visitors that come to our website don't seem to be getting anything useful done. They don't buy anything. They don't check their bills. They don't manage their subscription. They don't do anything. They go there and then they leave. Of course, we have this customer surveys that then we ask like how happy were you, and 1 to 7, and then we follow that. But the problem is that most visitors don't give feedback. So the question is like how to measure satisfaction of all the customers that land our site. And for this we've been looking after statistics from research, like tens or dozens of different kind of measures that possibly affect the satisfaction, usability, and that sort of things. And we're currently testing them out, trying to build a model that would somehow predict customer satisfaction, or was the customer able to do whatever he or she was doing. Yeah, for example, there are many people who come there and browse the offering. They look at the subscriptions and they look at the phones, and they don't purchase anything. But they actually then, after us or before us, they may visit some competitor store and look at the selection there. They may choose buy from there or from our store. But if we talk about like omnichannel, truly omnichannel and truly customer focused customer understanding, we should somehow try to understand also the whole customer journey across not only our own site, but also sort of somehow the competitor's site. I don't see that. I don't know yet how that would happen, but that would be a vision.
Okay, so the summary. To actually have working and successful experimentation teams, we were thinking like, what are the basics? So the basics is the safety net, the support, the right to do your own decisions in a team, and to have the sandbox where you can play. You have the freedom to play and the freedom to break things, and freedom to choose the challenges that you actually want to focus on. And then the other really critical one was that you have the vision. If you don't have the vision that is customer-centric, you have really hard time compete against the conflicting interests, which might often be the other than customer-centric reasons. And then challenge the machine. And with machine, we of course mean the whole organization and the like old-fashioned thinking. So if you do things right, then there will be problems. But then we were also thinking that if there are no problems, you actually might not be doing the right thing. And but anyway, when you have problems or any kind of issues, these are the opportunities to take people to collaborate with you, because collaboration is the key to actually start to change the culture to more human-centric and more experimentation. And
finally, like, challenge yourself in your data-driven world. Are you really serving 1% or 100% of your customers?
That's
Thank
it.
you.